Hi YouTube, how are you? It's been a long time since I was here. This year has been so busy with custom orders. I've been doing a lot of costumes for burlesque, for circus performers, for drag performers. It's been a really exciting year, but it's kept me so busy I have not had time to make a YouTube video. But I've got a quick couple of days where I can get something done. Recently I've been a bit obsessed with cocoon coats and making the perfect cocoon coat pattern. The first pattern I tried and that I started using, it looked really good, but it wasn't quite right. In a minute I'll show you that original pattern and why I wasn't happy with it. And then I'll show you the new pattern that I'm using, which creates this shape. But before that, let's talk about cocoon coats quickly. Cocoon coats were really popular in the 1920s and 1930s. They're called cocoon coats because of that cocooning shape that they give you and the curve it's got in at the bottom. So the features of a cocoon coat are that it's got lots of fullness and fabric and drapes around the sleeve, but then it pulls in at the bottom, and that's the cocoon shape. If you look back at pictures from the 20s and 30s, you'll see that there was a lot of variety based around this shape. And looking back at pictures, there's a lot of ways they were patterned, and there's some quite different ways. So I've been sort of going through pictures and trying to work out how they were made and how to make a version of it that works for what I do. So this is the first way I was making it. So this is the simplest way to make it, which is using a square of fabric. And you literally just bring the corners together, sew along the seam that you've created and leave an opening for your arms. And it makes a really beautiful shape, but I was finding that making it for performers, and I was making one for a burlesque performer, and it just didn't work because it did not give her enough movement. You can see the arms are at an angle and it is a little bit restrictive. The other thing I found was that because you end up with that point at the back of the neck, you end up with quite a lot of fabric sitting at the back of the neck, and it can create, it's a bit lumpy and it's not very pretty. So while it was a really great zero waste pattern, while it was giving the cocoon shape that we wanted, it wasn't working for the performers that I work with because it was restricting movements on stage. So I went back to the drawing board, I looked at old pictures again, and then I made another cocoon coat for a performer recently. And that was for Tina Cox, who just competed in Miss First Nations in Brisbane. Tina's a local Indigenous drag performer from Canberra, and for her finale gown outfit, she wanted to represent something that's iconically Canberra, and she chose the bogong moth. So we went down a route of doing an Art Deco sort of 20s, 30s inspired look, and part of that was to do a cocoon coat that was painted to look like a bogong moth. We chose this design because I thought it really suited the colours of the moth, but also because it gave them a couple of reveal moments on stage as well. So the first reveal moment was as the arms of the cocoon coat were down, those beautiful eye patterns on the wings of the moth, which were painted here, with their arms down, they were tucked in. So as Tina came out onto the catwalk and lifted their arms up, it revealed the eye of the moth, and they did a beautiful sort of flapping mothy motion with it. And then the second reveal was taking the cape off to reveal the dress underneath, and I actually fastened the front of Tina's coat with magnets, so it was really easy for them to undo on stage, just pull it apart, didn't have to fumble with a hook. And I was so pleased with it. I was so pleased with how it looked on stage. I was so pleased that I got to see footage of how it looked on stage. And I'm so pleased with how this pattern's working now that I thought I would share it with you, because I think it's a really versatile pattern for drag, for burlesque, or for someone who just wants a really pretty coat to wear over the top of other things. So this is the pattern and the sizes that I've figured out that works for me for cocoon coats. If you want the coat to reach your wrists, you're going to need an extra wide fabric, something that's 60 inches wide, which comes down to about 59 after you've edged it. And then the length I'm doing is 53 inches. This dotted line here is the bit that will be across your shoulders. This is the back, and then this is the front. I've also marked the center this way as well. You can change any of these measurements to change the size and overall shape of your cocoon coat. So I do it, so this part here is 25 inches and between the hem and the shoulder here is 19 inches. And then I find that the shape around the sleeves is a little bit better if I cut just the corner off a little bit here. So from about 5 inches below where the shoulder is, I just angle it in maybe by an inch or two at the bottom. I just find that when we join it, that sits nicer than having a right angle here. Then my length from my shoulder down to the back is 34 inches. If you want it longer or shorter, you can change this. So you will need to cut a little bit out of the front. So this will be the center front, and this little curve just goes a little bit back from where your shoulders are, and this is the bit that will sit around the back of your neck. For my spiderweb cocoon coat, I'm using a black crepe georgette. Now, I know black and white is always hard to see on videos. I always get people complaining if I do something black or white. So I'm going to sew this off camera. I'm actually going to show you how to make it using this dusky pink fabric. This is a velveteen crepe satin that I got from Homecraft Textiles. I'll link that in the description, and I'll link to the crepe georgette as well. That's from Homecraft Textiles as well. They're over in Western Australia. But you can use any fabric that's got a nice sort of weight and drape to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut my fabric to the right size. So I'm going to cut it just a little bit bigger than these measurements because we'll lose some when I hem it. So I'm going to cut it about 60 by 54. I've folded my fabric in half, selvage to selvage, so that I can find my center front. And I've got that lined up just here. So then I've marked from the bottom here, I've marked up the 19 inches to the shoulder, and then I've allowed another inch for the curve at the back of the neck. And I'm just going to cut that portion out. So I'm just going to start with a little curve here and then cut about 2 inches off. So that gives us the back of the neck and then the center front. So that's cutting out this piece here on my diagram. Now I've flipped it the other way, so I've got my selvage side here, and I'm just going to cut this little angle at the edge of the sleeve. So I'm just going to start at about 14 inches and cut it, so it's about 2 inches off this part here. Like I say, this bit isn't necessary, but I find it just helps the sleeve sit that little bit nicer. So that's it, that's my fabric cut out, it's that simple. So next I'm just going to do a narrow rolled hem edge on my sewing machine. I'll link to the tutorial showing you how to do this above and in the description. So if you want a detailed tutorial on how to do a narrow hem on slippery fabrics, you can go and watch that. But the gist of it is that I fold it once and stitch it, and then you very carefully trim next to your stitching, and then you fold it and stitch it again. And that's the easiest way to get a narrow rolled hem on a slippery fabric. To sew a slippery fine fabric like this, I'm using Schmetz Microtex needles. This is pretty much the only thing I use for slippery fabrics. I find that the Microtex causes the least number of snags on fine fabrics, and I'm very loyal to Schmetz. They're the only machine needles that I use. So I'm going to start by just folding in, it's about 1 centimetre there. I'm going to stitch quite near the edge. And then once I've done this all the way around, I'm literally just going to trim off all this excess and then turn it in and stitch it again. And as I say, I've got a video showing how to do it in detail. So if you want a more thorough explanation, follow that link in the description. So I've stitched all the way around both of the cocoon coats, and I've then pressed them as well. So I've chosen to do this narrow rolled hem finish on them, but you could use a bias binding to do a bias binding finish, either wrapped around the edge or so it folds inside for a neat edge. Another way to finish would be that if you wanted to line it, you could join your right side fabric and lining fabric right sides together, stitch all the way around the edge, leave a little opening, pull it in the right way and then press it, and that would make a really neat edge. Although joining some of this slippery fabric together neatly could be tricky. I'm happy with this rolled hem edge. I think it looks really neat. You could do your rolled hem on your overlocker as well and do an overlocker rolled hem finish too. So next up, it's time to embellish them. So it's easy to embellish them flat than it is once they've been sewn up. The pink one I'm going to leave unembellished, but the black one I'm going to be wearing for Halloween tomorrow. This is a very last minute Halloween outfit because as always, I just run out of days to do things. So this is my last minute Halloween outfit for a party tomorrow night. The embellishment I've decided on for the black cocoon coat is I'm going to make rhinestone spiderwebs on it. I've chosen a colour called Starry Sky. This is a clear crystal, but it's got hints of yellow and blue and purple as it moves. So I thought it would just give it a bit more depth than you're just using the normal silvery clear crystals. And to put them on, as usual, I'm using E6000 Fabrifuse and a wax pencil. So because this fabric's quite sheer, the glue is going to go through. So to protect my desk, I'm just going to put some baking paper under where I'm working. I've got my fabric flat on the desk and I've got some baking paper underneath it, and I've actually masking taped it into position in some places just because it is so slippery. And then I haven't drawn a pattern, I'm just going to kind of wing it, and I'm going to start with a big spider web coming out from just sort of in front of the neck here. So what I thought I'd do is if I lay my ruler on, I can do a line of dots for my rhinestones along the edge of the ruler. And I'm going to start with SS20 in the middle and then get smaller into 16s and then 12s as it gets towards the sort of the edge of the web, as it were. And then I think I'm going to do a big one on this side and then a smaller one on the other side, or maybe even on the bit sort of on the sleeve that will sit just on my wrist. Here's my finished spiderweb cocoon coat. So here is how the pattern looked when it was flat on the desk still. So you can kind of get an idea of where I put the pattern compared to where it sits on the coat now I've sewn it up. So you can see we've got the lovely drape at the arms, and then it's pulled in at the bottom to get that cocoon coat shape. So you've got, if I lift the sleeves up, so there's one side with the spiderweb on the edge of the sleeve there. Oh, and I added some tassels, I like some movement of tassels on the bottom of them. I think it looks really pretty. And then this is my big spiderweb coming round from the shoulder and down onto the sleeve, and then my little baby spiderweb just sits in under here. I would have liked to add some spiders to it, but I ran out of time for Halloween last night, but I might still add some more to it. And then this is how it looks at the back with that asymmetrical spiderweb coming across. And then you've got that web on that sleeve, and then there's that sleeve there as well, which opens up this web. And then I just did a scattering of crystals across it as well, just for extra sparkle. So next I'm going to show you how to sew it together to turn that shape into this shape. Here's my little diagram again, and I'll show you how to join it together, and then I'll show you on the mannequin as well. So basically you're going to take this corner here and pin it to this corner here, and then this length here joins along the front there. So the 25 inches in, that part there then joins to here. And then once you've pinned those, you stitch all the way along here. And then at this point, we can add some pleats if we want to, which helps pull this back part in and get the cocoon shape. I've put this inside out on my dress form. So I'm going to take this point here, which was our yellow mark on the diagram, and bring it up to join it to the bottom of the centre front. And now we're going to pin all the way along there. So you can see now I've pinned it, that's brought that back corner around and up here. It's given us the sleeve opening here, and it's created that cocoon shape by bringing it in at the bottom. I'm just going to pin the other side to match, and then I'll show you the difference that putting the pleats in makes. I've got the other side pinned now as well, and you can see it's brought it in to create that drapey cocoon coat shape here. If you want to bring the back in even more and really exaggerate the cocoon coat shape, what you can do is add some pleats just below this seam. There it is with the other side pinned as well. And you can see it's really tightened this part in here, and it's created some beautiful drapes through the front here, which is why you want to choose a nice drapey fabric to use for your coat. So now to finish this coat, all I need to do is stitch where we've pinned along the front and where the pleats are, and add a hook and eye just above that seam to hold the front together. So here's the finished cocoon coat all sewn up. So you can see I've got the beautiful drapes at the sleeves. I've got plenty of movement to lift my arms up as well. And you can see that where we've added the pleats here, how much it's brought it in at the bottom and created that beautiful drape sort of in underneath my bum here. So here's how it looks from the back when I lift my arms. So you can see there's so much fabric and so much movement. It's not going to be restrictive at all. So yeah, you can extend the back part if you want this to sit lower. Oh, I love this fabric. I'm going to get some more of this and use it for other things. It just drapes beautifully. And here's the spider web on me so you can get an idea of how that looks together and how that moves and opens the webs as I move my arms. I love the movement of the tassels on there as well. The one I did for Tina Cox had even longer tassels, which looked really good on the catwalk. So that's how simple it is to make one of these cocoon coats. Once you've got the basic pattern, you can then change it up to suit whatever you want it to be. So you can change the length here, you can shorten the sleeves if you want to. I've seen some patterns that have a centre back seam, so if you do a centre back seam you can make that the bottom part of it even wider, which gives you even more fabric to pleat as you pull the back in, which gives you lots of pleats and draping down here as well. I've seen ones that have got a centre back seam that have got a curve in it as well, which add more fabric at this part. So looking back at some of the pictures from the 1920s, they did quite opulent winter coats as well, so there was lots of velvets and brocades. You can add a big collar to this. Some of the 20s pictures, they've got big fur collars coming around, which looks really elegant. The embellishment options are absolutely endless as well. You can pick a beautiful embellished fabric. This would be a great pattern to use if you've got something with a lot of sequins on it, because there isn't a lot of sewing, there isn't a lot of seams. And then beyond that, you can just go nuts and embellish it in any way you want to. You could add like lace appliques, you could add rhinestones, you can add whatever you can dream up. I think now I've got this basic pattern that I'm happy with. I think it's going to be something I do a lot more of. I really want to explore the idea of adding the collars to it, maybe some fur or marabou or ostrich feathers on the cuffs as well could be really beautiful. So take my pattern, make it your own, make yourself something unique and fabulous. Tag me when you do, because I'd love to see what you make using this as your starting point. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.